Welcome to Food for Thought. My name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau from Compassionate Cooks. I founded Compassionate Cooks to empower people, to make informed food choices, and to debunk myths about vegetarianism and animal rights. You can learn more about who we are and what we do by visiting our website, compassionatecooks.com. Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. I just got myself a pot of tea, which I realize is a mistake when I'm about to do an episode because I talk the whole time and I don't have time to drink. So an entire pot goes cold, which is kind of sacrilegious to me. So I might have to pause in between and take sips of my tea so I don't waste my tea. So I really do hope you're all doing well. It's really lovely to be here. I'm very excited to announce another way to connect with Compassionate Cooks and a new way to join the Compassionate Cooks community. It's something that several longtime Compassionate Cooks fans have been urging me to do for a while, and we finally have it up and running, thanks in no small part to my graphics volunteer, Deneen Ajakute, as well as my tech-savvy husband, David. We did not leave the house for 4 days to get this thing up and running by the beginning of the year. So basically, we've created a Compassionate Cooks membership program. It's like a Compassionate Cooks club, and it provides many perks and benefits to those who join. Compassionate Cooks members receive 10 recipe packets right off the bat, and that's over 50 recipes right off the bat. They receive 10% discount on all Compassionate Cooks products. So when I talk about the cookbooks or the DVD or the different CDs, we have the Compassion in Action CD or the podcast sampler CDs. You get 10% off on these all the time as long as you're a member. And then you also get special discounts through our Compassionate Cooks business partners, which is really exciting. So we'll just be having discounts throughout the year from these amazing businesses. And then also Compassionate Cooks members receive our special newsletter, which is packed with recommendations and recipes and special tips and resources and essays. The regular Food for Thought newsletter has been scaled down, and the new newsletter called Soup to Nuts has been scaled up. So there are a lot of benefits to becoming a member, and this is just the beginning. There are many more things on the horizon. So check out compassionatecooks.com and click on the Become a Member button to join the club. And I think you'll really enjoy it. So that's that. And before we get started, I'd like to send out a huge thank you to today's listener sponsors. I know this might seem like it's part of the introduction, but this is really the second part of every podcast episode where I get to read a little blurb from someone or some people who've sent me emails through their sponsorship. I think it's important not only for me to be able to share with you the impact this podcast is having on people, but so that you also hear parts of your story or parts of your journey that you can identify with or certainly pass on to other people. And I just think it's really powerful. So this is my time to thank people like Samana Garzadine. And Samana, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. She told me not to thank her, which is ridiculous. When I thanked Samana for her sponsorship, she replied, "Hello, Colleen. Please don't thank me for anything. It's you that I want to thank. You are changing the lives of everyone that has the privilege of hearing you speak. I don't know if I would have become vegan without you. At least it would have taken a lot longer. Your podcasts are so inspiring and empowering, and I'm so thankful to be on the receiving end. Please don't stop the podcast anytime soon. I hope you still have a long list because I eagerly await for a new one. Thank you for not giving up on us humans. We all have the potential to do amazing things. Thank you for helping us find that potential. With much gratitude, Samana." Thank you, Samana. I have to thank you. I can't not thank you. So thank you for your support and for your lovely words. Next, thank you to Glenn Honest Court, who's very sweet. I've had the pleasure of hearing from Glenn more than once, and he originally wrote, "I started listening to your podcast just because it seemed like it might be interesting on iTunes. Then it became one of my favorites because it's so compelling. I am really amazed how much your podcasts have influenced me. Before, I was like, isn't it a little extreme to be against leather? It's just a byproduct and it's biodegradable. And now I won't buy leather or meat anymore. We tried the dates, like you said, as well as your 4 other favorite foods, and both of us agreed they made all the difference in our sweet recipes. You truly give meaning to the phrase food for thought. You're making a big difference in our lives and for the better, so I had to contribute something." So thank you, Glenn. I know you know how grateful I am for your support. And finally, Alex Christofchuk, who wrote, thanks, Colleen, for your extremely informative and well-researched podcasts. I've only listened to a few, but have already found myself using the knowledge they give me in my conversations with people around me who are curious about veganism and vegan cooking. Also, while being 100% vegan in my eating, it wasn't until your podcast on leather that I started seriously thinking about that aspect of veganism and animal rights. Obviously, I always knew leather production entails animal suffering, but your podcast, once again, with well-researched facts, made it clear just how much leather production is an integral part of the animal exploitation machine. I will never look at leather the same way again. Thanks for everything. Thank you, Alex. I'm thrilled that particular episode really had an impact on people. In fact, I hear from a lot of people who listened to the leather episode and was really surprised by a lot of what they learned. So I'm thrilled. Thank you. And thank you to all of the sponsors of this podcast. Thank you to all the listeners of this podcast. If you'd like to be part of this work, if you'd like to help me continue this work and spread this word, please consider sponsoring the podcast either as a monthly sponsor or as a one-time sponsor. I really could not do this work without you, and I do this work because of you. So thank you for your support. Visit CompassionateCooks.com and click on Sponsor Our Podcast under the menu item Writings Podcast, I think is where it is. So thank you very much. Now on to the topic of the day. Today's episode is part of a special series called the Compassionate Series that highlights various vegan or animal-friendly companies or products or organizations that I love and support and that I think you would want to know about. These favorites are framed within a larger context and they're featured for the relevancy of that topic. Today's episode, for example, The Compassionate Bathroom, focuses on product testing on animals and features some fantastic products and organizations to make your bathroom a compassionate bathroom. If you recall, we also recently did an episode called The Compassionate Gift Guide, which featured companies and products that are great for giving as gifts for people. And subsequently, we have an episode coming up called The Compassionate Kitchen, which focuses on eating healthfully. So that's the idea behind the Compassionate series. I hope you enjoy it. So let's get started. It's amazing to me that I've done almost 100 episodes of this podcast and I haven't even talked about vivisection, animal testing. This is a huge topic. And we'll be covering various aspects of it over time. But since we need to start somewhere, I thought I'd start with animal testing as it relates to cosmetics, personal care items, household products, etc. Mainly because this is something most of us have heard of, and because through our purchasing power, we can really determine which companies we want to support and boycott based on their policies around animal testing. Now, this is a subject close to my heart because though I often talk about the fact that my own journey started with my reading Diet for a New America when I was 19 or so, the fact is that it was my interest in the ethical issues surrounding vivisection that really led me to John Robbins' book in the first place. I could not tell you where or when or why I first heard about animal testing. I wish I could remember, but when I did, I immediately did what was in my power. I looked for products that boasted not testing on animals. And today the options for cruelty-free options are vast, a lot more vast than they were when I first began. And there's simply no reason, there's rather no excuse not to seek out these products. But let me first provide a little background and clarity about the use of animals in laboratories for cosmetics and household products testing. In 1938, Congress passed the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to force drug manufacturers to prove that their medications were safe. Okay, that was 1938. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, was given the responsibility of overseeing the act, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Though animal testing had become the status quo by now, despite the fact that many reputable scientists declared, even at that point, that it was useless and misleading, it was to become entrenched even further with the passing of this act. But still, even for the development of drugs, it wasn't mandated that drugs be tested on animals. At that point, in 1938, it was not mandated that drugs, even to adhere to this act, had to be tested on animals for their safety. The worst blow for animals was yet to come, and it arrived in 1961 with the passage of the Kefauver-Harris Act, which mandated animal testing for drugs. I'll spell it for you if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm not sure. It's K-E-F as in Frank, A-U-V-E-R-Harris. They were two senators who passed this act, Kefauver and Harris, and this mandated animal testing for drugs. Study after study and decades had already demonstrated that animal testing for new medications in no way reflected efficacy or potential complications in humans. But it persisted. Ultimately, what this did was provide a legal sanctuary for pharmaceutical companies. But that's another story. But that's pretty much what this did. And this is one of the reasons it's so entrenched even today. Now, as it relates to our topic, neither the FDA nor the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, which regulates the household products, so the FDA was overseeing the cosmetics and personal care products, and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission regulates the household products, neither one of these bodies requires animal testing for cosmetics or household products. Neither one of them. There's no requirement for animal testing, period. There's no law that mandates animal testing for cosmetics and household products. The FDA requires only that each ingredient in a cosmetics product be, quote unquote, adequately substantiated for safety prior to marketing, or that product will carry a warning label indicating that its safety has not been determined, right? So no one wants to put that warning label on their products. So they have to make sure that it's been adequately tested for safety, or they have to carry that warning label, and they don't have to use animals to test the safety, but nonetheless, animal testing for cosmetics and household products is done anyway. Why? You ask, why is this done? Why, if they don't have to do it by law, is it done? And that's the million-dollar question, right? And it's an important one to address. I will certainly have more to say. I do have more to say about it as we continue to talk about vivisection and the history of animal testing and the harm it does to animals as well as humans. The best answer I can give you now, though it might not be satisfactory, is, in my opinion, the reason we continue to is because we can. That's really what it comes down to. We test on animals because we can. We also test on animals because it became the accepted way of doing things. The history of vivisection is absolutely fascinating, and I promise to talk about it in an upcoming episode. I hate to dangle that in front of you like that, but there's just too much to say in this episode. There's just too much to cover. So even though it's not mandated to test personal care and household products on animals, it's done every day on millions of animals. And when people first hear about advocates' concern about this, I mean, I've heard people say this. I've often heard them joke about how harmless it is to stick lipstick on a rabbit or eyeshadow on a mouse. That's not what happens. This is not what we're talking about. It's not harmless. That's not the reality. And so I'd like to talk about the reality and tell you what does go on in terms of these tests on animals for cosmetics and household products. We'll talk about some of the common tests, and we'll start with the Draize test. I think most of you have probably heard of the Draize test. That's D-R-A-I-Z-E. And it was developed in 1944 by John Draize, who was a scientist at the Food and Drug Administration, again, the FDA. And he was charged with the task of determining the side effects of cosmetics. Eventually, the test also applied to not only determine eye and skin irritancy from cosmetics, but also insecticides, sunscreens, and other chemicals. It's often called the Draize eye test, but it's also used as a skin irritancy test, with the chemical applied not only to the eyes, but also to the penis and the skin of animals, mostly rabbits, but also dogs and non-human primates. You have probably seen those images of white albino rabbits confined in a contraption that locks their head in something that looks like stocks, you know, those old medieval torture devices, the stocks. That's pretty much what it looks like. It's meant to render the rabbits immobile during the test itself because, of course, they'd respond naturally and quite unfavorably to having a chemical placed in their eye socket. And that's what's done. A chemical substance is placed in one eye. The other eye is left chemical-free to serve as the control to be able to compare it. And their eyes are evaluated after 1 hour, and then after 24 hours, and then in 24-hour intervals for up to 14 days. And some continue to be evaluated for up to 3 weeks. I mean, I'm just imagining getting soap in my eye and what it feels like. We're talking about chemicals literally poured into their eyes and kept that way for 14, potentially 20, 21 days. And the level of irritation to the eyes is scored numerically by observation. Okay. Not in my opinion, a really stringent scientific method observation, but that's what's done. And as a result, of course, from these chemicals, the rabbits experience burning and itching and pain. They suffer redness, bleeding, and ulcers, and even blindness. The rabbits are killed upon completion of the experiment, or they're kept alive long enough to do another Draize test to test the effect of irritants on the skin. And then they're killed. So ultimately, they're all killed, of course. But after they suffer immense discomfort and pain from these tests. The skin test, the Draize skin test, involves applying the chemical to the rabbit's skin. So the fur has first to be scraped off or shaved off, and then they measure the swelling or the sores or any damage that's produced on the skin from whatever chemicals they're testing. Now, the arguments against the Draize eye test include the fact that the structure of the cornea of the eye of a rabbit differs significantly from that of a human. Also, rabbits produce a smaller volume of tears than humans just by nature, and it basically allows the chemicals and other irritants in the rabbit's eyes to linger longer and cause more irritation. So it makes the test pretty unreliable, not to mention cruel, because it's so painful. Finally, because the data is evaluated by observation, as I was saying before, the analysis is very subjective, which leads to a great deal of variation in results. In fact, a comparison of rabbit and human data for 65 substances found that 45% of classifications of chemical irritation potential based on the animal tests were incorrect. 45%. We're talking almost half. So you just flip a coin and you pretty much have the same result. Now, there are alternative tests available, and they're perfecting them all the time. You can go to aavs.org, which is the American Anti-Vivisection Society's website, and they're on the forefront of helping to develop these tests and being part of this whole process. Let me just read to you what they say about some alternatives that are available right now. Alternatives include tissue cultures from human skin and eye tissues. Human skin equivalent tests such as Epiderm and Episkin have been validated and accepted in Canada and the European Union. The most relevant and predictive test for skin irritation is a skin patch test on human volunteers, which is currently accepted by the Canadian government. So there's an alternative to the Draize test that's been recently approved to determine eye irritants, and it involves testing tissues from the eyes of animals discarded at the slaughterhouse. Now, live animals must still be used to confirm negative results, but that's one of the alternatives to the Draize eye test, is getting eyeballs from slaughterhouses. According to the latest USDA animal care report, in the U.S. alone, over 260,000 rabbits were used in labs in 2004. So rabbits are the most commonly used species covered by the USDA lab oversight. And what I mean when I say that, and again, we'll talk about this more another time, is that even though millions of rats and mice and birds are used every year, they're not covered. They're excluded by the Animal Welfare Act. So that basically means that roughly 95% of the animals used in research currently have no legal protection. Without coverage under the American Welfare Act, these species, rats, birds, and mice, are not assured the most basic standards of care, which include access to food and water and relief from pain or distress. So of the animals covered under the Animal Welfare Act, rabbits are the animals most commonly used for this particular test, but certainly mice and rats are also used for this test. The second most common animal test is acute toxicity testing to determine the danger of exposure to a chemical by mouth, skin, or inhalation. Now, you may have heard of the LD50 test. It stands for lethal dose 50, which was for decades the main type of toxicity test done. It was developed in 1927, and it basically means that you force feed poisonous substances to a large number of animals until at least 1/2 of the test animals die. So that's the LD50 test. It's also called the median lethal dose, which is the dose required to kill half of the test population, LD50, lethal dose 50. Rats and mice are most commonly the victims, but dogs and hamsters, cats and guinea pigs, rabbits and non-human primates are also used. In nearly all cases, LD50 tests are performed using a pure form of the chemical, not mixtures, and the chemical may be given to the animals by mouth, by applying on the skin, or by injection at sites such as the blood veins or directly into the muscles or directly into the abdominal cavity. Now, LC50 tests, which stand for lethal concentration 50, right? Lethal concentration tests, they're conducted to determine the lethal effects from breathing in a chemical or vapors of a chemical. So the LC concentration, you've got lethal concentration versus the lethal dose. And in this case, the chemical, usually a gas or a vapor, is first mixed in a known concentration in a special air chamber. And the concentration that kills 50% of the animals is called an LC50 rather than an LD50. So again, it's just a matter of how much of the concentration kills 50% of the test animals. And the LC50 test is slowly being replaced by other kinds of toxicity tests, namely the fixed dose method, which does not use death as the endpoint for the experiment. Signs of ailments or suffering usually terminate the experiment. Now, of course, the animals are still killed at the end, but at least fewer animals are used. A fixed dose procedure proposed in 1984 uses about 10 to 20 animals per experiment, compared to about 80 to 200 for the LD50 to find the dose producing signs of toxicity. And from there, that predicts the lethal dose. So it uses fewer animals. Other tests include the acute toxic class method and the up and down procedure, which typically involve the use of smaller number of animals as well. However, during these tests, animals, and this is a quote from the AAVS, quote, will often endure excruciating pain, convulsions, loss of motor function, and or uncontrollable seizures. The animals are killed at the end of the test so that a necropsy can be performed to determine internal damage. Rats and mice are the animals most often used in acute toxicity testing. Now, as you can imagine, it's very difficult to extrapolate information on human responses to chemicals based on these animal test methods because different species of animals have wide variations in their responses to chemicals. The classic example of this, and again, we're just going to keep talking about these examples and a lot of the myths surrounding vivisection, but the classic example is what happened in the 1950s and 60s when thalidomide was prescribed to treat sleeplessness and morning sickness. The drug produced no effects in animals, though they tried for 5 years to replicate in animals what they already knew was happening in humans. So what was happening is that children were being born with birth defects, and they knew pretty quickly that these birth defects were caused by the thalidomide. But because they could not replicate this in animals, and they tried for 5 years, they didn't pull it off the market. They didn't pull it off the shelves. So over 10,000 children over this 5-year period were born with birth defects, missing arms and limbs. And, it was just pretty horrific and totally preventable. And the reason they didn't pull it is because they couldn't replicate it in the laboratory. And yet they were already seeing it in humans. That's the best test you have, is what it does to humans, if that's what your ultimate, aim is. And so that's just one example of not being able to extrapolate accurate information between species. In terms of alternatives to animal-based acute toxicity tests, 2 in vitro test methods have been recommended, and they're awaiting validation. And again, AAVS is on this. And so if you really want to learn more about these alternative test methods and how you can be part of it and how you can support this work, I really recommend you check out aavs.org. Now, the good news is that there are over 500 manufacturers of cosmetic and household products that have shunned animal tests and are taking advantage of the more humane, more effective, and more scientifically sound non-animal tests. One of the more heartening stories of a company that basically embodies what the future will hold involves Tom's of Maine. I'm sure you know Tom's of Maine, the toothpaste manufacturer. Now, for 7 years, Tom's of Maine petitioned the American Dental Association, the ADA, to grant its seal of approval to Tom's of Maine's toothpaste. Other toothpaste companies had conducted lethal tests on rats in order to be eligible for the ADA seal, but Tom's of Maine worked with researchers to develop fluoride tests tests that could safely be conducted on human volunteers. And the ADA finally accepted, after 7 years, the results of these tests and granted its seal to several of the company's toothpaste in 1995. So this sets a precedent for other companies to follow and to replicate. This whole idea of companies seeking out cruelty-free tests did not occur in a vacuum. Activists across the ages have been working very hard to make this possible. In fact, if you're interested in a fascinating story about how one person can make a difference, I highly recommend a book called Ethics into Action, Henry Spira and the Animal Rights Movement. It's written by Peter Singer, and it tells the story of Spira, who was an incredible activist and led several successful campaigns, including one targeted against Revlon and their use of the Draize test back in the late 70s. On April 15th, 1980, Spira and the Animal Rights Institute took out a full-page ad in the New York Times with the header, "How many rabbits does Revlon blind for beauty's sake?" And as a result, Revlon began research into cruelty-free alternatives. So that story is a really fascinating one about one activist really making a huge difference. I mean, along with other people and organizations, there was a whole coalition built around this. And it really started this whole idea of companies responding to consumers and companies responding to activists. Now, the struggle continues. It's not over. There's still a lot of work to do, but hope prevails. For instance, in 2000, California became the first state to pass a law limiting the use of animals in product testing. Specifically, it makes it unlawful for a manufacturer or a contract testing facility to use animals when an appropriate non-animal alternative test method has been validated for use by the Interagency Coordinating Committee for the Validation of Alternative Methods. It's a long, it's a long name there. The abbreviation is ICCVAM. It's the Interagency Coordinating Committee for the Validation of Alternative Methods. New Jersey and New York became the second and third states to pass such legislation in 2007 and 2008, respectively. And other states have considered similar legislation on the topic, including Arizona. And that's just the U.S. Other countries have been much more progressive on this issue. The United Kingdom stopped licensing animal testing for cosmetic products and ingredients in 1998. A small number of other European countries, such as Austria and Belgium and the Netherlands and Germany, have passed cosmetic testing bans. In 2007, Israel passed a law banning the use of animals for testing cosmetic and cleaning products. In 2004, the European Union passed the Seventh Amendment of the Cosmetics Directive that sets a series of deadlines for animal testing bans and bans on the sale of cosmetics containing animal-tested ingredients. It's pretty radical. And this legislation will have an enormous impact on the cosmetics industry, both in the European Union and abroad, because the law sets specific deadlines, not just for the production, but also for the sale of products that have been tested on animals or contain animal-tested ingredients. It's pretty amazing. Well, on the consumer side, the big question is, how do you know if you're buying a product that hasn't contributed to animal suffering? Well, there are a couple things you can do. One is you can look for the Leaping Bunny logo. You've probably seen that, which is assurance that the cosmetic, personal care, or household product company who features that logo has not tested their product or ingredients in their product on animals. And it's really important to make that distinction. You probably have noticed that some packages will say, this finished product has not been tested on animals. And that means that ingredients of the product may have been tested or most likely have been. In fact, the majority of animal testing occurs at the ingredient level. A product packaging may even say, we do not test on animals, which means that they could contract other companies to do the testing. So it's pretty misleading and confusing, but now you know. If there's a Leaping Bunny logo on the package, you know that the product is 100% not tested on animals, neither the ingredients nor the finished product. And the standard set characterized by the bunny logo is internationally recognized. So you'll find this logo on Canadian and European products as well. However, it's also important to note that even if it says that, it doesn't mean that the product is vegan. Now, in other words, that means that some companies may boast the fact that they didn't test on animals, but they still may include animal products in the product. Okay, so if you see the Leaping Bunny logo, it doesn't mean there aren't any byproducts in the logo. You can detect that by just reading the ingredients. It just refers to the fact that there's been no testing at all for this product. Now, another way to tell if a product is vegan is to look for the vegan certified logo. It's administered by Vegan Action, and you'll find this symbol on food and clothing and cosmetics and other items that contain no animal products and are not tested on animals. You can go to vegan.org and to see. So go to vegan.org, www.vegan.org, to see exactly what this little icon looks like. It's a good way to have a quick visual reference without having to read the ingredients list. Now, keep in mind that just because a product doesn't have these logos on it, it doesn't mean that it's not vegan or that it's not cruelty-free. Companies are adding these logos all the time, and it's going to take a while before these are pretty standard issue. It will take time before every single product on the market carries these symbols. Now, if you'd like to find out exactly which companies don't test on animals, you can do so by going to such places as caringconsumer.com and, again, AAVS. People ask me all the time which organizations I support, and I don't mind telling you that one of my favorite organizations, the one that I've been supporting for the longest amount of time and consistently, has been the American Anti-Vivisection Society, the AAVS. And I know you've heard me talk about them before, but I just want to emphasize how awesome they are. They're celebrating 125 years in their quest to end animals in science. They're one of the oldest animal organizations in the United States. And one of the things that they started is the Alternatives Research and Development Foundation, which funds and promotes the development, validation, and adoption of non-animal methods in biomedical research, product testing, and education. So they've been on the forefront of this work from the beginning, and I highly encourage you to check them out and tell them Compassionate Cooks sent you. Now, I also want to recommend some specific companies and products that I personally adore and encourage you to check out specifically for your bathroom. That's the whole point. I mean, we're talking about household products here, and there are so many natural household products on the market. I mean, those that tend to be cruelty-free are those that are also the most natural, which is something to look for. So your soap, your dishwashing liquid, your laundry detergent, all of those things are pretty easy to find. When you're looking for natural ingredients, you should be, looking for natural substances anyway. You don't need all of those chemicals. Certainly, you don't need all those chemicals that I grew up with. It's amazing we all lasted this long. It's amazing we all survived what we did. But I want to recommend some companies specifically for the bathroom, some products specifically for the bathroom. And there are some fabulous companies out there run by fabulous people who create fabulous products. And I'm not just saying that. I really only tell you about companies whose products I use and love and believe in. So it's a pleasure to tell you about some of my favorite cruelty-free companies. And as a bonus, Compassionate Cooks members get some special discounts. So check your email if you're a member. You'll also be getting updates about discounts from these companies in the Soup to Nuts newsletter, and you'll be hearing about them from me. So check out your email for details about these discounts and sign up to be a member if you're not already, to take advantage of these discounts. Now, first and foremost is Arbonne. And I've talked about Arbonne before, but because they fit so well into this topic, I wanted to feature them again. Arbonne is a 29-year-old health and wellness company, and they specialize in skincare and aromatherapy and weight loss and nutritional supplements. And all of their products are American made, but Swiss formulated, and they're botanically based. So they're plant-based and they're hypoallergenic. Plus, they're all formulated without any mineral oils or dyes or chemical fragrances, or, to our point, animal products. And to our point also, they're vegan.org approved, which means, as you now know, that their entire line is free of animal products and that neither their ingredients nor their finished products have ever been tested on animals. They're tested by dermatologists and pediatricians and ophthalmologists. And I really do love everything I've tried by them. I love how my skin feels when I use their products. And I love that they're so proud of their vegan stance. They have an extensive line of over 365 products for women and men and babies. And they also have a whole sun care system and acne lotions and aromatherapy. Now, to purchase products or get more information or even to order samples, visit, now write this down, www.KarenCunningham, that's Karen Cunningham, CUNNINGHAM, KarenCunningham.myarbonne.com. That's KarenCunningham.myarbonne.com. and that's myarbonne.com, Arbonne. Or you can email Karen at karencunningham@myarbonne.com. And again, I really encourage you to check them out. People ask me all the time about the skincare products I use, and I highly recommend Arbonne. So thank you, Karen, for all you do. I hope you're well, and I hope your chickens are doing well. Karen and I met up at Farm Sanctuary, and she adopted some chickens that she takes very good care of and loves and has lots of stories about. So thank you, Karen. It's a pleasure promoting you and sharing your products with everybody out there. So check it out. Now, another company whose products you'll want to include in your bathroom, I'm sure you've heard of them, is Preserve. You may have heard of them as Recycline. Recycline is the parent company. And I've been using their personal care products for years. They make toothbrushes and razors and also flavored toothpicks out of 100% recycled materials. They even have adorable toothbrushes for kids, which feature endangered species on the packaging, so they help educate kids around this issue as well. But what had caught my attention when I first discovered them a few years ago was the fact that when it's time for you to replace your toothbrush, you don't throw it out. No. You send it back to Preserve using their postage paid label so they can reprocess your toothbrush into plastic lumber for picnic tables and boardwalks and decks. Now, by the way, the toothbrushes come in ultra soft and medium. And the same goes for the razors. Their handles, the razor handles, are made from 100% recycled materials, and the blades are replaceable. So when your blade is worn out, you can just replace it with a new one. And if for whatever reason you're done with the razor itself, that is the handle, you can recycle it yourself, where you are able to recycle number 5 plastic, or you can send it back to them. So you can print out the mailing label from their website, which is, write this down, www.preserveproducts.com. That's Preserve, Preserve, products.com. And then you affix that label to your package. So it's totally no waste, which is the way things ought to be. There's no reason we should be accumulating as much garbage as we do. And Preserve is changing that. And I love them. I love them as a company. I really recommend you check out their website to read all about their environmental standards and all the things they're doing to help protect the environment. And what's more, you'll see this on the website too, is you can even send your Brita pitcher filter, the Brita filter, the pitcher filter, back to them to also get recycled, which they then use to make new Preserve products. It's so cool. And since I've discovered them, they've also added new products, by the way, including an entire line of plates and cups and cutlery that are made from 100% recycled materials and which can be recycled. And they also have an entire line of kitchen products, including mixing bowls and colanders and measuring cups and food storage containers. And everything they make is super colorful and bright. The colors are just really, really pretty. And of course, as it pertains to our topic today, they do not use any animal products and they don't test on animals. In fact, on their website about this topic, they say, we don't test on animals, period. I love that. So check out preserveproducts.com to purchase their awesome bathroom and kitchen products and to learn more about what they do, or to just print out your labels for sending your products back to them for recycling. They're a fantastic company, and I'm thrilled to be able to tell you about them. And yes, Compassionate Cooks members get the added bonus of getting special discounts on all their products. Now, finally, I want to tell you about another company that I just discovered recently, and I'm so thrilled. Their name is Crazy Rumors, and I can't even tell you how excited I am to have found them. I will try to tell you. And it happened really unexpectedly. I was down in Los Angeles to speak at an event at Animal Acres, and I went down a little early to spend some time with a friend who is actually a podcast listener turned friend. Even I make friends on the podcast. And she took me to Alternative Outfitters in Pasadena. Now, Alternative Outfitters is a great vegan store, alternativeoutfitters.com. And they sell shoes and belts and wallets and lots of really cute stuff, scarves and shirts and stuff. And they have a little storefront because it's mainly their warehouse space, but that space happens to have a little area in the front where customers can shop. So we're looking around and we came across a little display of lip balms. Now, I have to tell you, I'm a lip balm nut. I always have lip balm on me. And if I change jackets or bags and I forget my lip balm, I'm totally depressed. Like, I'm not depressed, but I'm really bummed. So I'm a huge lip balm nut, and I never really found one that I loved. And I admit, like, I kind of like played the field when it came to lip balm. Sometimes I'd find one that looked really good on the outside, and then I liked the scent, or I looked at the ingredients and found that they used beeswax or lanolin or some other kind of animal secretion in it. So I would keep searching, and then I'd find one that was vegan, that worked well enough, but whose taste was kind of funny. So I've been on a lifelong quest for a really good lip balm that was, really good, but that it was, of course, vegan as well. So Kadri and I noticed this little display at Alternative Outfitters of lip balms that was really cute. The design is just really adorable. And it was this little collection, a little gift pack of different flavors whose overall theme was coffee. There was amaretto and coffee bean and French vanilla, mocha, hazelnut, and Irish cream. And the collection is called Perk. Okay. So for you coffee lovers, it's awesome. But as a tea junkie and one who feels that tea junkies are often like second fiddle to the coffee culture, I said out loud to Kadri, yeah, like it's really cute, but like, why can't they have a tea set? And clearly I wasn't looking closely enough because Kadri pointed out just a few inches from the coffee collection, a tea collection. Okay. So you know how exciting this is for me. I was super excited. And that was even before I tried it. I just loved their design and I loved that there was a tea collection. So the tea gift set, this tea collection is called Brew, B-R-E-W. And the flavors are plum apricot, orange bergamot, apple spice, peppermint lemongrass, ginger peace, and spiced chai, which is amazing, which is probably my favorite. I think the spiced chai is my favorite. Now, here comes the real test. How do they feel and how do they taste? They're amazing. I kid you not. Now, admittedly, I haven't tried any of the coffee flavors. I've only tried the tea flavors, and I've tried some from another collection, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But every flavor in the tea collection is so fantastic, and I'm just really excited. I know I'm just a total dork because I get really excited. Like you'd think I discovered gold, but I get really excited about things like this, especially something I wear every day, all day. So I do feel like I struck gold. Now, they have other flavors as well for those who don't want the tea line, but I do recommend the tea line. But there's also the a la mode line, which includes orange creamsicle, pistachio, banana split, raspberry sherbet, mint chocolate, which is fantastic, and almond fudge. Hello, I'm getting hungry. And they have a candy cane line, and they have a bubblegum line. And it's also amazing. So now that I have the whole tea collection, all of the flavors in Brew, I have to tell you, it's really cool. I was just laughing the other day because now I have a lip balm in every pocket, either in my robe or sweaters that I wear pretty frequently or jackets that I wear or my purse. So I'm never without a lip balm, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty happy about that. And in relation to what I was saying earlier, in the case of Crazy Rumors, you'll notice that their label says vegan and cruelty-free. So there you go. So that you should understand now what that means when it says cruelty-free and what it means when it says vegan. And they're both, of course. I wouldn't feature anyone who was not. So do not wait another minute. Go to crazyrumors.com. Check them out. You're going to love their design. It's just absolutely adorable, really engaging. And if you'd like some discounts on these scrumptious, yummy, Crazy Rumors lip balms, they are available to Compassionate Cooks members. The discounts are. But the lip balms are available to everybody. So go check them out. So those are some products and companies that I'm really excited about, and I hope you become excited about too. And I wanted to just end on a bit of hope. In 2008, the National Research Council released a report titled Toxicity Testing in the 21st Century, A Vision and a Strategy, which advocates the use of non-animal in vitro test methods. Now, the National Research Council is affiliated with the National Academy of Sciences, which advises Congress on scientific matters. So this is a pretty important council. And according to the report, let me quote to you what they say. According to the report, quote, animal toxicity tests are time-consuming and resource-intensive and are not always useful in testing human responses. The report also questions the practice of administering high doses of chemicals to animals when traditionally humans would be exposed to much lower concentrations, right? So as an alternative, the authors recommend using human cells in these tests, which could test thousands of chemicals in many different concentrations to determine the chemicals' effects. The study requested by the Environmental Protection Agency concluded that human cell systems have the potential to largely supplant testing in animals. And I think that's incredibly encouraging news. I am very hopeful about the abolition of animal testing for personal care products and cosmetics and household products. As for the use of animals as research subjects, that's a topic for another episode, but I will tell you this. I do not doubt that there will come a time when we cease using animals in labs at all. I honestly do not doubt this. I know this will happen. The question is, when will it happen and how many animals will suffer in the meantime? Now, we can do our part in the meantime by purchasing cruelty-free products and vegan products for our home and our bodies, and certainly encouraging our friends and family members to do the same. Buying products like Crazy Rumors or Arbonne or preserve products. It's a fantastic way to educate other people about products like these, by giving them as gifts to friends and family members, because it just encourages them to use something or introduce something to them that they didn't know about before. So that's one way we can do our part. And like I said, the cruelty-free products are also the most natural and the most environmentally friendly. So it's time to swap out these toxic chemicals for natural substances anyway to clean our bodies and our houses. It's a win-win for everybody. I wish you well on your journey to cruelty-free living for the animals, both human and non-human. This is Colleen with Compassionate Cooks. Thanks for listening.